most of his or her desires remain unfulfilled even if he works hard towards attaining this need.
Just working hard doesn't do things in the world. This is the biggest problem. Right from your childhood, your parents taught you, if you study, how should you study? Study hard. If you work, how should you work? Work hard. You do everything hard. If you do things hard, things won't happen. It'll become a donkey's life, just doing everything hard. Nobody told you, you must study in joy. Nobody told you, you must work in love. They told you, you must do it hard. They made their lives very difficult for themselves. Now they are ensuring that your life becomes difficult too. Why do you work hard? What are you working hard? If it's hard, give it up. If you can do it joyfully, you do it. Otherwise, don't do it, isn't it? Isn't it so? If you're going to make yourself miserable in the process of working, what use is your work to yourself or to anybody around you? You just sit at the temple gates and beg and eat, it's better. Somebody will throw you 1 rupee, 2 rupee. You eat out of it, at least that you do joyfully. Sit there happily, eat what people throw into your bowl. If you're going to make it so hard for yourself, I'm sure you're making it very hard for everybody around you, isn't it? If you're going to spread misery in the world, it's better you don't do anything. If you're going to spread joy in the world, go and do as much as you can. Now you work hard. Just because you work hard, things need not happen, and they do not happen. One day it happened. Can I tell you a joke? Shankaran Pillai's old ambassador wouldn't start. Does anybody still own ambassador? No? All of you evolved out of it. His old ambassador wouldn't start. So he went home. He had a kitten at home. He brought the kitten, harnessed it to the ambassador. He said, "Go, let's go, let's go." People looked at this and said, "Are you crazy? Can this little kitten pull the ambassador car? Generally, it takes God to move this car." "What are you doing?" Shankaran Pillai said, "Don't you fool yourself, I have a horsewhip." You believe you can do everything hard and it'll work. It'll not work just because you do it hard. You must do the right thing, only then it works, isn't it? If you do not do the right thing, it does not work. People who are successful not because necessarily they work hard, they just know what's the right thing to do with their kind of job. That's why they're successful. Another day, Shankaran Pillai fell into the septic tank. I want you to imagine. Right up till here in filth. Please imagine and see. He tried to get out desperately, he couldn't. Then after some time, he started screaming, "Fire, fire, fire!" Neighbors heard the fire screams, called the fire brigade. The firemen came and looked everywhere, no fire. Then they found him in the septic tank, pulled him out. And then they asked, "Why were you screaming fire?" Then Shankaran Pillai retorted, "If I said shit, shit, would you come?" You must do the right thing, otherwise it doesn't work. So just working hard will not do. You must do the right thing, otherwise it doesn't work.
They've been spreading these messages all over the world. God is love, God is compassion, God is generosity, God is peace. But nobody said God is intelligence. See, these are all human qualities. Because you have given them up, you are trying to export it to heaven. If you paid attention to anything, a single leaf or a flower, an ant, an atom, if you paid absolute attention to anything, what you will see in creation is intelligence, intelligence, intelligence and brilliant intelligence, isn't it so? Suppose nobody told you anything about any god. Say, first of all, you must see how we have arrived at these conclusions. When you crawled out of your mother's womb, you looked around, too much creation, too much. Who did this? You know, a child, an infant looked like this. What is asking, what's all this? Who did all this? So, first thing is he looks at his mother. Well, your mother delivered you, she can't deliver the planet. Then you looked at your father, oh, well, not him. You looked at every other adult around you, nobody looked like capable of creating all this. So, one simple childish story is, there's a big man sitting up there and doing everything. First of all, we don't know what is up and down. You're on a round planet, isn't it? Yes, you're on a round planet. Do you know what is up and down, I'm asking? And it's also spinning. Somewhere in this cosmos, is it marked this side up? It's only when you allow an unbridled process of intelligence, which is need not necessarily intellect. If your intelligence flowers, that is when you feel closest to what you consider as the source of creation.
What is the goal of human life? What is the purpose of human life? Or in other words, why life? That's a question. When it comes to life and existence, you never ask why. When it comes to fundamental existence, you never ask why. Because if you ask why, then I have to tell you a story. When I say a story, even if it's a real story, a real story, whatever I speak, if it is not in your experience, it is just a story. The only option that you have is either you believe me or you disbelieve me. Yes? If you believe me, it doesn't get you any closer to truth. If you disbelieve me, it doesn't get you at all. So, you never ask why. Right now, you're here with life. Why such a question has come? What is the goal of life? Because the process is not enough, isn't it? Yes? The process of life is not enough somehow. Suppose you were bursting with ecstasy every moment of your life, such a question would never come. What is the goal of life? Because to live is the goal of life, to live and to live totally. To live totally does not mean party every night. To live totally means, when you are here, you must experience all aspects of life and go. Whatever this is, Every aspect of what this is must come into your experience before you fall dead, isn't it so? Yes? This must happen, isn't it so, for every human being? Or do you want to just experience 10% of you and go away? You must experience what this life is totally, isn't it? Before you go, you must experience this. If you do experience that, then such questions will never arise in your mind, because that's not the way existence is. Logically, your question is very correct. Okay, I'm living here, what is the goal of my life? If I tell you the goal of your life is you must attain to God, so we are making lots of assumptions, isn't it? We are making assumptions about various things which are not yet in our experience, isn't it? The moment you make assumptions about things which are not in your experience, you will become hallucinatory. 99% of the world's religion is hallucinatory, please see. Because you're assuming things that are not in your experience and working with that which you have assumed. The moment you give power to things that you have assumed, your mind will just fly off into all types of imagination, and it'll be more real than real. So your imagination can be more real than real, isn't it so? You go and sit in a cinema, it is just two-dimensional, just play of light and sound. But its impact is much more than the life itself, isn't it so? Yes? You went and sat in IMAX theatre? Its impact is bigger than life, isn't it? But is it bigger than life? Do you think so? Is it really bigger than life? Not at all. It is just that imagination has such power. Imagination, thought, emotion, all these things are a way to pave the way. Now I have a thought, I want to go to New York. This paves the way. Once I say, I want to go to New York, now, okay, how to go, shall I buy the ticket, shall I walk it, what shall I do, shall I drive? It's paving the way. But if I sit here and go on thinking New York, I'll never make it. Thought is not a reality that takes you there. It only paves the way, it makes you willing, that's all. Yes? Thought and emotion only makes you willing, it's never the real thing. But once you start giving too much significance to your thought and emotion, it starts seeming like as if it's the real thing. More real than the real. What you're thinking in your head is more real than what's around you, isn't it so? Yes? That's the whole problem with life right now. That your thought and emotion has become a bigger reality than reality itself. Now, this is like, if you go probably in the countryside, there'll be, what do you call them? We call them handpost. What do you call them here? A handpost? What do you call it? Something, a marker? A signpost, okay? So, these are called handposts usually because they used to be made like hands at one time, like this it used to be. Have you seen them? Like this, it says, this way to New York. So, you go and sit on this and you think you're in New York. That's not New York, isn't it? So, thought is only a signpost. It points you in the direction you want to go, but it never takes you there, it cannot take you there. But people who think it is taking them there have become hallucinatory in such a way that even reality cannot get them out. Even if you poke them with a knife, they will not know, they're somewhere else. Their thought and emotion is far more important than that. This is a scourge which has taken humanity such a big way, such a big way. And of all the type of thoughts and emotions that we generate, the religious thought and religious emotion or spiritual thought and spiritual emotion are most dangerous because they're powerful, empowered by the otherworldly. Because of that kind of power, it just rules people. It just rules people so deeply. And we can always see that some other religion that you don't belong to, what stupidity, what nonsense they're doing, but what you're doing is just never visible, isn't it? Yes? Isn't it so? Isn't it happening every day? Because once the thought and emotion becomes powerful, you start believing it. Once you start believing something which is not yet in your experience, you are a dangerous human being. Because all the conflict on the planet, even today, what's happening, though people try to project it as it is good versus evil, though people are trying to project it as good versus evil, it is not about good and evil. It is always about one man's belief versus another man's belief, isn't it so? Always between one man's belief and another man's belief. Why can't we be sincere enough to simply see whatever we do not know as we do not know? What is the problem? This is the biggest human problem. They can't see that they don't know. They have to bullshit themselves all the time. And this is not a joke. This is a terrible tragedy on the planet, isn't it? This is not a joke, this is not a simple thing. It has cost phenomenally for human life on this planet, phenomenally, and still continuing to cost. But what we think and feel is so important, isn't it? So, what is the goal? What if there is no goal? What will you do? Will you die tomorrow? Suppose there is no goal. What to do? You want to die? Isn't it wonderful? There's nowhere to go. Yes? Isn't it really great? There's nowhere to go, you don't have to work your way to heaven, you can just live here happily. No, we are going to heaven. If you're so sure you're going to heaven, what are you waiting for? If you're so dead sure you're anyway going to heaven, what are you waiting for? I can't understand the logic. Huh? Waiting for the ticket. All you have to do is go and cut your throat in front of the temple. You understand? Whichever is your favorite temple, it'll happen. People 100% believe after I die, I will go to the lap of God. If you are going to the lap of God, you should not delay it. Really? Isn't it so? Such a sacred duty, can you delay it? You must go today, not even tomorrow. No, you want to live long. So why are you postponing such a wonderful opportunity? That's because you're full of bull. You tell yourself things which are not yet a reality for you. I'm not questioning whether these things exist, not exist, but it's not yet a reality for you. If you talk about things which are not yet a reality for you, to put it very bluntly, it just amounts to lying. This lying has cost phenomenally for individual human beings and for the whole humanity in a big way.
For more on Sadhguru, visit www.ishafoundation.org.
A few days ago, you spoke about the spine being the physical, emotional, and spiritual growth center. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
The spine, we call it Merudhanda. Merudhanda means it is the axis of the universe. A human being can live just as a biological entity, or he can transform himself into such a thing, he's almost like the center of the universe. So spine is one dimension of you which determines which direction you go. How your spine is functioning, How the energies in your spine are functioning right now determines almost everything about where you go. Within the spine, if you know the physical construction of the spine, you would know there are two holes on either side of the spine, which is like a conduit pipe for all the nerves to pass. This is the Ida and the Pingala, the right and the left channels, which represents the dualities of the creation, which are connected to two parts of the brain. Today, the medical science also is identifying left brain and right brain and whatever. This is Ida and Pingala. In the Far Eastern terms, they call it yin and yang, or in traditional Hindu terms, they call it Shiva and Shakti. It's called by various names. Fundamentally, the two dualities of the existence, which is the basis of the physical reality. Beyond this, there is a central space, it's an empty space flowing through. In the spinal cord, there is an empty space. This is the Sushumna. Now, bringing a balance between these two will establish you well in this life. It'll make you effective in the world. It'll make you handle life aspects well. But if your energies enter into Sushumna, and in Sushumna you can bring various kinds of qualities into Sushumna. Fundamentally, Sushumna is attributeless. It has no quality of its own. It is like empty space. Empty space is there, you can create anything you want, isn't it? So, once energies enter into Sushumna, we say, you will attain to Vairagya. Vairagya means, Raga means color, Vairag means no color. No color means you have become transparent. If you have become transparent, the advantage of being transparent is, right now, if what's behind me is red, I turn red too. If what's behind me is blue, I turn blue too. If what's behind me is yellow, I turn yellow too. Yes? Unprejudiced. Wherever you are, you become a part of that, but nothing sticks to you. Anywhere you go, if you are among red people, you can be totally red, but the redness doesn't stick to you for a moment. You're red because you're transparent. You're among green people, you're totally green, but the greenness does not stick to you either. Wherever you go, you become that, but nothing sticks to you. Only if you're like this, only if you're in a state of vairag, then you will dare to explore all dimensions of life when you live here. If any color sticks to you, then if red has stuck to you, you will resist going into the green. If green has stuck to you, you'll resist going into the blue. Whatever sticks to you, you will resist going into the next one, because you develop this prejudice of this is right, this is wrong, this is okay, that is not okay. It will restrict the flow of life. So all this mechanism is fundamentally built into the spine, not in the brain. It is in the spine. If you manipulate the spine in a certain way, the very way your mind and the brain functions can be greatly altered. I should not be saying all these things. I can blow your head off just by touching your spine, really. I can just touch your spine and have my brain going into real tizzy, because spine is the root. So, when you do the kriya or when you… generally in your life, except for sleeping postures, it's good to keep the spine erect. That itself will do many things to you, many things. Now, anything that you want to do, you want to look at the planets and stars. You want to step out of your house, the planets should align themselves properly. Yes? Right time, wrong time. Are you looking at all those things? Rahu kalam, guna kalam, whatever else. If you want to get married, you go and ask the third person, can I live happily with my wife? I think it's obscene. Whatever the kind of fool you marry, why can't you live well with her or with him? Whatever kind of idiot you're married to, once you've chosen to marry, why don't you live well with them? Or if they're showing some new kind of madness that you did not predict, why don't you leave them? Anyway, with all the predictions, horoscopes all matching well, still these two people nobody can match, isn't it? Any astrologer will match horoscopes for people, but can they match these two people? To what extent you're being responsible for the other, only to that extent your marriage works. Is it so? How responsibly you handle the other person, only to that extent it is working. Is that so? No. Personal development I'm talking. I understand. I'm talking about developing your life.
Like for example, you say that on a certain period of moon, like Amavasya or Purnima, the energy is about
Yes, I'll come to that. Now, see, every shape, every form has a certain impact upon you. Now this vessel is sitting next to me, it is emanating its own kind of vibrations. Every object is doing it. But now it's up to me whether I allow this vessel to influence me or I influence this vessel. That's left to me. Which way should it be? Which way should it be? This vessel should influence my life or I should influence its existence? Human nature should do that, isn't it? Now, all these stars and planets, they're inanimate things, aren't they? Rock and stone, isn't it? Rock and mud, isn't it so? Inanimate. Now, should inanimate things rule the destiny of your life, or human nature should rule the destiny of inanimate things? Which way should it be? Human nature should, if you have realized the potential of what it means to be this. Otherwise, inanimate things will rule you. Now Paurnami comes, full moon day. Do you know, during full moon days and new moon days, people who are little mentally disturbed go hyper on those days? Are you aware of this? Do you all go crazy on new moon days? Do you? No. Compared to them, you are a little more stable. Because of this, wherever the moon goes, you can carry on your normal process of life. But for them it is not like that. Because they're in a certain level of instability, if the moon comes up, they're going crazy. The moon disappears, they're going crazy. So, you are a little more stable, suddenly moon has no impact upon you. It is pulling up the whole ocean, but no impact upon you if you're a little stable. Similarly, if you stabilize yourself further, nothing has an impact upon you, but you impact everything. Human nature should decide the course and the destiny of all inanimate things, not the other way around, isn't it? If you allow yourself to be influenced, anything and everything is willing to influence you. But that's not the way you should exist. You must take the course of your destiny into your hands. And you should go through what is needed to empower yourself that way, rather than waiting for the stars and planets to fall into position. Many of the stars that you're looking at up in the sky, they don't even exist, do you know? Many of them have disappeared long ago. Because they're so far away, the light is still coming, slowly. Yes, light is coming very slowly. That is why for so long you're seeing. Actually, the stars have disappeared long ago. But you are making your calculations based on those stars. It is just that every object has an influence. Definitely, planetary positions have an influence. But whether you allow yourself to be influenced or not, that is in your hands. If you have realized your human nature, you should not allow all these planets to decide your life, isn't it? You must decide the quality of your life.
Coming closer to home, what do you suggest for, a lot of us who have children here? What are the things we can be doing to sort of put them, or at least follow some of the ideas that you've shared with us?
Don't infect them. So whenever a child enters people's lives, they always think, most people tend to think it's time to teach. No, when a child enters your life, it's time to learn, because between you and your child, who is more joyful? Child. So who should be a consultant for life? Definitely he's better qualified than you, isn't it? You know a few survival tricks. You may know how to earn your money, you may know how to handle your survival tricks outside. But when it comes to life, he's able to make any simple situation a joyful situation. So definitely he must be the consultant for life, isn't it? So a child has come means it's time to learn. It doesn't matter how glum you are. If you have a child in your house, unknowingly you will laugh, unknowingly you will play, unknowingly you will dance, unknowingly you will crawl under the sofa. These are not things you have done for a long time isn't it? Once a child is there, it's like a bundle of joy bouncing all over the place, and unknowingly you start doing many things that the child is doing. So, the most important thing is don't infect the child with your what you call as adulthood. This is not adulthood, okay? This is just suicide in installments. Don't infect the child with that. You have to learn to live like him, to make any situation into a joyful, wonderful situation. It doesn't matter what. You give him a piece of wood, with that he makes his life for the whole afternoon, isn't it? Isn't it so? With anything, he can make a situation wonderful for himself. You just have to learn that too. You have to teach him a few survival skills that he will learn anyway. You can also guide him a little bit, but those things anyway he will learn. So the most important thing that you need to do, especially in a society like this, where the moment the child steps out, you don't know what influences are going to catch him up. You don't know what is going to swallow him outside. When you're living in a situation like this, the most important thing is stop acting like a boss. And see, when you were growing up, if you… whatever problems or whatever when you had, did you go to your parents or to your friends? Whom did you share it with? Friends. And your friends, whichever way, they are not qualified to guide you, but in their own way, with great confidence, they put you onto something, okay? Isn't it? Why is it? Why is it that parents who have been with the children right from day one can't be good friends? You just have to get off your pedestal, that's the most important thing. Stop being a big boss, get down and be a friend. If he has anything, you should be the first person that they share with, isn't it? Yes? That's a very important safety net for the child, that if you are the first person they want to talk to, if whatever it is, it doesn't matter what their problem is. If you leave that level of openness and friendship with them, if they come to you first, there's every possibility that they won't get lost in something, isn't it? That's the simplest thing you can do. Whichever way, every human being has his own limitations and possibilities. The only thing is to create a situation and atmosphere so that their possibilities and their capabilities are not lost in something else, isn't it? That's all you can do. You can't recreate that human being, but you can nurture that human being to his ultimate potential, that's the whole thing.
So, the most important thing is this, the parents should get off their pedestal and start treating them as equals. And friends, this can't happen suddenly when you think he is smoking, then you try to be his friend. Please tell me, what are you smoking? Is it just tobacco? Then he won't yield. At that point he won't yield, by then he's got his defenses right against you. This has to happen right from childhood, that he never sees you as somebody who's pushing him around or bossing around or all the time advising him about something, that you are very much a friend, he can talk to you and you talk to him as an equal. If this is maintained right from the beginning, when he is developing and when there are possibilities of he's taking wrong steps and things like that, you will be the first person he comes to. That is something we have to build, isn't it? See, the more you try to be positive, the more you will become negative. I think we've been looking at this from day one. The nature of your mind is such, if you say, I don't want this, only that will happen in your mind. Isn't it so? Now if you say, I don't want the negative, only that is happening, that's all. Why are you talking about positive, negative? Why do you want to look at it that way? Why don't you just look at every situation the way it is, accept it the way it is, and see what best you can do about it, that's all, isn't it? It is neither positive nor negative. Don't try to develop attitudes and philosophies. Why can't you just be here without any specific attitude, without any philosophy, just aware? Simply aware. Every situation demands a different kind of response, isn't it? Yes? If you develop this kind of attitudes of positive thinking, this or that, in one situation it works well, in another situation you will do stupid things because you have a prejudiced idea that you have to be like this. You enter a place where certain dangers are there, you better think about what negative things can happen. You better. If you go on doing positive thinking in the wrong place, you may get killed. The worst things may happen to you, isn't it? So there is no need to be positive, no need to be negative. Why don't you just be aware? If you are aware, you perceive the situation the way it is. When you perceive the situation the way it is, to the best of your intelligence and capability, you can act. That's all. Don't get into prejudiced action.
Does the future seem very hopeful to you? Because you have seen how it is in various places. So, human nature may be same, but still, how it is going to be in the future? Is there any
prediction? What's going to happen in the future? See, if my whole thing was to make a prediction, then why would we do all this work? It doesn't matter how bleak the situation looks right now, but don't ever underestimate what is in a human heart, what people really want. Don't underestimate that. In 10 years' time, the whole world may just be changed into a complete different possibility, It is just that people need sufficient poking to get them going. But when they get going, you don't know what they can do. They can do something that's never happened on the planet till now, isn't it? Isn't it so? So, don't try to predict future. See what kind of future do you want to create. Why are we always trying to predict future? I want you to set a goal. Before I die, I want to leave the world at least this much better. Wouldn't that be better? Instead of predicting future, why don't you set a goal for yourself? Before I leave this world, I will make it at least this good. If all of us set a goal like that, definitely there's a wonderful future ahead, isn't it? We are hoping from the stars some guidance will come. Stars are dumb, inanimate rocks. Okay? You are supposed to have brains and intelligence. They don't have all that. They're just far away, but they're just dumb, unintelligent rocks, isn't it so? Yes or no? Just because they are far away, we don't have to attach such importance to them. They are not guiding our lives. Human destiny is in human hands. How we handle it, that's what it will become. If we handle it sensibly, definitely there's a wonderful tomorrow. If we handle it foolishly, definitely there's going to be a terrible tomorrow, isn't it? So don't predict. Predictions means an insult to humanity. All predictions are a terrible insult to humanity, isn't it? Isn't it so? That means there is no value for what a human being is. All this nonsense is happening simply because you have not realized the immensity of being human. How big it is to be a human being, it's not been realized. The very wonderful stories in India you must have heard. In India there are stories like this. If gods have any problems, they get into trouble, they will come down to meet the sages and saints for advice and consultancy. You know that? This is just to tell you, a human being can raise himself to such a stage that even the gods will have to seek advice from him. Just to tell you the immensity of being human, what it means. So, if you realize the immensity of being a human being, then you won't predict, you will create. We just have to create, not predict. What is dream? Most of the dream, over 90% of the dream, is just unfulfilled desire. Because you have no control over this. You are not playing the desires are playing you. Anything that you see, you desire, isn't it? You have no this about, okay, I should desire for this, not for this. Anything that you see, your mind just runs after it. You may not pursue it really, but at that moment, oh, I wish I had it, I wish I had that. Everything that you have desired for till now, when you go from here today at 5:30 or 6, if all of it is waiting for you at home, you've finished. All the things and people that you've desired for in your life, if all of them are waiting for you at home, can you live there? Can you? No. So isn't it a fortune that your desires have not come true? So because you are desiring in an unbridled way, it's not in your control. All of it can never be fulfilled in life. But it needs to be worked out, because once you desire something, you're investing a certain amount of energy in that direction. You need to understand this. Now, if I say, oh, I want these lights, immediately a certain amount of my energy is invested in that direction. Now I forget about this, so oh, I want the camera. I'm investing certain amount here, but this is still going on. I may not be conscious, but this is still going on. In a day you do this with 100 different things, you become all scattered. You're so scattered, now endlessly, mind is just going on with meaningless thought. Because constantly your energy is being thrown in different directions, it is not going in one direction. Have you noticed at a certain time in your life when you had a deep longing for something in particular, you created a big longing towards something, at that time all these things disappeared. Have you noticed this? Yes? You invested in one direction. Suddenly, all these thoughts just disappeared from your mind. So dream is happening simply because your mind is just being constantly scattered around with desiring process. And all of it can never be fulfilled in reality. So you're working overtime in the night, fulfilling them in fantasy ways. Yes, there are other dimensions of desire, but they are very small. If such things happen to some individuals, we will handle it. We don't have to disturb everybody with such dreams. Desire is just free cinema. Enjoy it. Whether it's a horror movie or a love story or a suspense thriller, just enjoy it. What's your problem? Free cinema they're showing you. What should you do to be enlightened? Now once again, enlightenment is not an achievement. Enlightenment is not going to the peak. Enlightenment is a homecoming. You come back to your original nature. Right now, you have identified yourself with many things that you are not, isn't it? Now, we were looking at this yesterday. What you call as my body is an accumulation that you slowly gathered, isn't it? When you were born, you were only so much, now you are so much. Why? You gathered your body slowly, accumulation. What you call as your mind is accumulation. Everything that you know around you is accumulation, isn't it? That means you are deeply, deeply identified with things that you are not. A piece of earth you picked up and made body out of it. But that piece of earth, you're so deeply identified, you believe it is you. Till you fall dead, you go on believing this, isn't it? Isn't it so? So right now, you have gotten distorted vision. If you stop your distortions and come back to your original nature, that's enlightenment. What do I have to do? There is really nothing to do. If you don't do anything, it will happen. But right now you have gotten into a mental state that there is no way you can do nothing. All the time you are out doing something. You think if you don't do anything, something will happen. Yes, it will happen, something fantastic will happen, but you have not allowed yourself in that state for a moment. So, to bring you to that state where you can do nothing, we will have to make you do many things. Otherwise, you won't sit in one place, isn't it? If you simply sit here and don't do anything, either with your body or with your mind or with your emotions, the reality of the existence will burst forth within you, nobody to stop it. It is just that you are constantly on. You have become such a slave of your mind. Endlessly it's going on. You can't stop it, you can't hold it, you can't do anything about it. Because once you get into the trap of the mind, it just goes on endlessly. It has its own momentum, you don't have to do anything about it. One day if you rev it up and leave it, it can go on for many years, picking up more and more momentum. It doesn't need your assistance anymore. Isn't it so? Do you see this happening? People who are reasonably happy in the world are those people who got a little break from the nonsense in their head. That's all. They are not all the time like that. Some moments, they are not so messed up. So they're okay. If you don't mess yourself up, if you simply be here, you are enlightened. But you can't keep your hands off it all the time, it's on it. So slowly with yoga, all these postures will tie your hands up in such a way that you can't mess with it, because you're in a posture. Somehow. We'll do it to you somehow. Why do you want to conquer them? See, you will want to conquer something that you value, isn't it? Do you want to conquer something that you do not value? See, why would you take the trouble of conquering something that's of no value to you? You must… if you want to conquer, would you want to go and conquer a wasteland, or would you want to go and conquer a rich land? Rich land. If you were a king, what would you want to conquer? A rich kingdom you would like to conquer, not a wasteland. You don't want to go and conquer a desert, isn't it? So why do you want to conquer something that you don't want? I know, I understand. So first drop the idea of conquering. Right now, are you angry? No. So why should you conquer it? It doesn't even exist. How do you control or conquer that which does not exist? Once in a way you get angry, isn't it? Why are you getting angry? Because suddenly your body, your mind, your energies are not behaving the way you want them to. They're just doing their own nonsense suddenly. That's anger, isn't it? So, anger is not in constant existence. That which is not in existence, trying to control or conquer that is just going to be a wasteful effort. Sometimes your mind turns unpleasant. One form of unpleasantness is called anger. Or in other words, sometimes you turn unpleasant. One form of your unpleasantness is referred to as anger, other forms of unpleasantness are called by many other different names. We'll just take anger as an example. Why would anybody make himself unpleasant? Why? There is sufficient unpleasantness in the world. Where is the need for you to make yourself unpleasant? Right now, you are in this kind of childishness, that if situations around you are unpleasant, you will also become unpleasant. But you tell me, is there any intelligence in this? Especially if the situations around you are unpleasant, is it not all the more important that you must be very pleasant within yourself? Yes? Is it not all the more important? But right now you're in this mode, this childish mode, that if outside situations turn unpleasant, you'll make your insides also terribly unpleasant. There is no intelligence in this, isn't it? Somewhere, when it comes to ourselves, we are refusing to employ our intelligence. I am not telling you don't get angry, it's up to you. If it's a pleasant experience, get angry all the time. But generally, whenever you get angry, you suffer more than your victim, isn't it so? Yes? What is the point? Why would you create unpleasantness to yourself? There is enough unpleasantness in the world. However you walk in the world, you will step into something unpleasant here or there, isn't it? Isn't it so? However you try to avoid, somewhere you will step into some unpleasantness. Is there necessity that you have to manufacture your own private unpleasantness? Is there such a need? No. So why are you creating things that you don't want? Why are you creating unpleasantness for yourself? You just don't know what you're doing with yourself. That's the only reason, isn't it? Absolutely, unconsciously you're trying to go on. You do one thing. With your eyes closed, right now try to drive to your home. You may make it one day, one day you may make it. You may bump a few people and still make it home. But try for a few days, you will not live few days. Isn't it so? So right now it's just like that. You're trying to handle your well-being with your eyes closed. You will not know well-being, it doesn't matter what you do. You have to handle it with your eyes open, isn't it? If you go by your standards, 98% of the people are bad, so you will be repulsed by them. And if you have to work with them, if you have to love them, if you have to reach out to them, it'll take a huge toll on you. If you just accept them the way they are, everybody comes with their problems. You see I'm responsible for them, or you accept them the way they are, then we will see what to do with them. Maybe we can rub them and make them little more sensitive. Maybe we can peel their skin off and make them little more skin sensitive. If their skin is thick, we peel it off, then they feel everything. That's what I'm trying to do with you. Just trying to peel your skin off a little bit, though it hurts, so that you become really sensitive to everything around you. That sounds like what? Abrasive, sadism, whatever you like, but that's the only thing works that I've seen. So we want to just scrape off your skin so that you become truly sensitive to life, everything you feel. If you had no skin, you would feel everything intensely, isn't it? So, we're just trying to make you feel intensely about everything. That is spirituality, that you feel about every atom in the existence, intensely. Like you would have felt if your child was in the verge of death, how you would feel, like that you feel about every single creature on the planet. Now, you will be overwhelmed with it initially, but once you come to terms with it, now there's a new kind of balance in you. Nothing can throw you off balance anymore. Once you've started feeling like this, somewhere a natural reorganization will happen within you, that either you have to just fall dead with the feeling, or you'll come to a new balance. You won't fall dead, don't worry, you're capable of this. If you make yourself feel overwhelmingly for all life, you will see it'll not kill you, it'll bring you to a new height of life and give you a new sense of balance, which empowers a human being in a huge way. Say, how to address the larger issues of my life. There are no large issues in your life.
Somebody needs to help me understand that.
What is the large issue that you're talking about? It is just about what job to take, which girl to marry,
that about covers it.
Where to go for vacation, whether to get married or not get married, These are the things, isn't it? These are not large issues, these are little things in your life. Yes, oh, is it just a small thing whom I get married to? I'm not saying it's a small thing, but as an issue, it's a small issue, little issue. As a consequence to your life, yes, it has many things. But this is something that human beings have done for millions of years. We have enough experience on these things, isn't it? We know that whatever job we take, whoever we marry, it is just the way we make out of it. Every experience of life, you can make it an enriching experience. Every experience in your life, you can make a curse out of it. See, there is nothing wrong in your job, whatever job you're doing. There's nothing wrong getting this job, there's nothing wrong in losing this job. There's nothing wrong in getting married, there's nothing wrong in getting divorced. There's nothing wrong in not getting married. There is nothing wrong in anything, there's nothing wrong in this or that. But it is just that you make misery out of it, that's wrong. If you do this, you make misery out of it. If you do that, you make misery out of it. That's what is wrong with you. So you got married, is it wrong? That's not the point. There's nothing wrong with it. You did not get married, is it wrong? No, there's nothing wrong with it, that's wonderful too. You got divorced, is it wrong? No, that's also wonderful. It is just that you make misery out of everything, that's what is wrong. You just address that one issue, everything will be settled. That's what we are looking at. How not to make misery out of everything. If this one thing is settled, everything is settled, isn't it? Yes? If you know how to walk through this world joyfully, through marriage and divorce and celibacy and everything, if you know how to walk through this joyfully, What is the problem? Whatever you do is beautiful, isn't it?
Does this mean just living this whole life happily without realizing self is enough?
That comes next. If you don't even know how to be happy, don't have such goals as realization. They are very far away from you. See, you are just dismissing something very fundamental to your life with a stupid definition. Happiness is not just a state of mind, it is just the basis of the quality of life that you live here, isn't it? Is it such a small thing, happiness? Oh, it's just a state of mind. Is it a small thing? It's the biggest issue, isn't it?
In your book you have written, this is the minimum thing to do in life is
Yes.
be happy.
Yes.
And if I do that in the entire life, will I be fulfilling my life?
No. No, I didn't say that. I said, if that is not possible, forget realization and all that nonsense. It's not even in your sphere. If you are capable of going through this world joyfully, then you could talk about going beyond. If you're not even capable of going through this joyfully, talking about beyond is no good. There is no way, I'm telling you. There is simply no way. For a person who is constantly creating inner battles all the time, how will he deal with the bondages of life and how will he transcend that? There's no question. It doesn't arise in your life. So first thing is working towards to be a blissful human being. If that happens, the rest becomes very simple. Because a blissful human being, once your happiness is not at stake, anything that's needed you will do, isn't it? Right now you cannot do what's needed because always your happiness is at stake. You are thinking which is the right thing to do, which is the right thing to do. There is no right thing to do in your life. There is no wrong thing to do in your life. If you know how not to make misery out of everything that you do, whatever you're doing is the right thing. If you're making misery out of everything that you do, everything that you do is the wrong thing. So that's the only issue you have to look at. Others are all petty things. What does it matter, which way you do it?
I just want to know how one would be able to identify their own potential or talent, what to focus on.
Currently, in this society, especially in India, I think, all over India, but I think particularly in South India, right from your childhood, the parent situation in most homes, there are exceptions, but in most homes, the parent situation and the social situation is such. They're constantly making the child think in terms of what kind of activity would make them survive best, what kind of activity would get them a good job, what kind of activity would get them good money. They're only thinking on these terms. When you orient a child like this, right from his early age, then whatever innate talents he has, maybe there is a Picasso in your house, but now you make him into a doctor, you know, he'll only smear blood on people. Simply because right from his childhood he was never allowed to think beyond survival. If you're really interested, if you have children, it's very important, just allowing them to develop. Don't be in a hurry that they must find a job, do something. See, it's not necessary, everybody by the time they're 25, they must have a job and they must be going, they must be married, they must have children. It is not necessary. Different people will mature at different times. If they find their jobs at the right time, if necessary, if they marry at the right time, or go beyond it, whichever way, according to their natural tendencies, they would definitely evolve into more complete human beings. You may become an engineer or a doctor or whatever, but a very disturbed human being, not finding expression for anything within yourself. No, maybe you would have made a good carpenter, but now you're a doctor. You can imagine our plight. And nothing wrong in being a good carpenter. You can become a great carpenter, isn't it? But such a thing is not there at all. You must become a doctor. If you cannot, you must become an engineer. Now, of course, software. This is how they're going, isn't it? They try for medical college, don't get engineering college. Where is the connection? If you don't get a medical college seat, Ayurvedic college, veterinary medicine, or at least become a witch doctor. But you don't become a doctor, you jump into engineering, where is the sense? That means you're only interested in proving something to somebody, you're not interested in making your life beautiful, isn't it?
What is the best paid job? If they
So I'm saying survival, just survival. See, every human being has necessary intelligence and strength to survive in the world. Maybe not like somebody else, but in his own way. But if he is doing something that he cares for, if he is creating something that for which he has a natural liking, then whether he does it on this scale or that scale, he will still be happy. Yes? Now you're doing something for which you have no natural tendencies simply because socially you're oriented that way. Now there is a sense of frustration about the jobs that you're doing. You continue, of course, because you invested 5 years, 10 years in education, so you can't go back. You keep pushing yourself, isn't it? It is unnecessary to orient the society like this. Now, every 10 years, the society is shifting its idea of what is the best education. Now there are too many doctors, nobody wants them anywhere. Yes? Now people are thinking something else. They thought software, half the people were sent back from other countries. Now they're desperately looking what's the way. I know survival is important. With the kind of overpopulation and competition we have, survival is important. But still giving at least 50% of your life open, seeing what you could do, is a good thing to do for children because they live more complete lives. I know many people may not have the means to do it, there are many difficulties, it's not as easy as it is said, all those problems are there. But still, it's worthwhile to make an effort to create a next generation which is little more harmonious within themselves, isn't it? Whatever the effort it takes, still worthwhile, isn't it?
In these current times, we have witnessed the proliferation of a number of spiritual gurus. As a seeker on this path, how do I recognize my guru?
If you happen to set your eyes on one, just one in your life, you're very fortunate. Where did you get to see number of them, I don't know. It is just that anybody who reads 2 chapters of Bhagavad Gita can become a guru. Anybody who knows 1 chapter of Bible can become a guru. Anybody who's read half a book can become a guru. If you're talking about that, that's different. Or anybody who just willing to give you a great hope that I will take care of everything in the world, unfortunately passes off as a guru. We've had too many people like this on the planet, and especially in our country, who have been promising us, don't worry, I am here, everything will be all right. Isn't it so? For all the ages they have been saying it, isn't it? But people have been struggling with their daily life as usual. So many people have been blessing you and blessing you and blessing you, and still in this country, half the people don't have food in their stomach. Still, we don't even know how to live as basic human beings. Isn't it so? So, when you say Guru, you are referring to a whole band of circus gurus. All kinds of people who offer solace. People who offer solace, at the most you can call them as saints. They have a certain pleasantness about them. They're pleasant human beings. They are much more pleasant than ordinary human beings on the street, and they have good intentions. Good intentions and pleasant nature does not make you a guru. Maybe we can call this person a holy person, a saintly person, something like this. A guru need not necessarily be pleasant. See, I am not. Need not necessarily be pleasant because it is not his intention to be sweet to you. His intention is to awaken you, not to put you to sleep. If I am very sweet to you, you'll feel happy and fall asleep. A guru is somebody who disturbs the fundamental aspects in you. All kinds of conclusions that you have drawn, he disturbs everything in you. He doesn't allow you to sleep. He is not a solace peddler. He is somebody who is there to assist you towards your liberation. Now, solace is once again an effort to survive in the planet, isn't it? Yes? Psychological solace is just your psychological survival here, isn't it? If survival is all you're seeking, you should not look for a guru. You should look for solace peddling people. You look for a guru only when you're willing to awaken yourself, when you're willing to transform yourself, when you're willing to drop your limitations and go into other dimensions of life. If such longing has not come yet, do not bother about gurus. You settle yourself somewhere, go to a cinema, eat some good food, take a walk in the beach, it'll help. Now, how do I recognize my guru? You don't look for your guru, okay? You just deepen the longing in you. When you know the pain, when you know the true pain of not knowing, when you know the pain of ignorance, then a guru will happen. You don't have to look. Even if I see him, how do I recognize him? If you sit with him, everything in you should feel threatened. You want to run away, but there is something in you which keeps on pulling you towards him. You don't want to be there, but there is something in you keeps drawing you in his direction. We can assume that this is your guru. If you don't feel threatened by him, if you feel very comfortable with him, then he is not your guru, maybe he is your friend. Maybe he is a good man, maybe you should seek his blessings, but he is not your guru. Because if you choose, you will choose what you like, isn't it? Yes? If you choose, what will you choose? You will choose what you like. What is it that you always like? That which supports your ego, you like. That which punctures your ego, you don't like. Anybody who supports your ego is your friend, isn't it so? Anybody who tampers with your ego is your enemy, isn't it so? So, if your guru also is one more who supports your ego, this is a no good guru. If you sit with him, you should feel threatened. But still, if you are drawn towards him, he's your guru. So if enlightenment happens, how do we know it has happened? Suppose we are hallucinating to be enlightened. If such a thing happens, it will be clearer than daylight. It's not something that you can miss. It is not that kind of an event that you could miss it. You will not miss it. But when I say this, there is a problem attached to this because these days it is going on in many places. For a certain fee, within a weekend's time you can get enlightened. You'll be declared enlightened by somebody. Really. It's happening everywhere. If you just pay a certain amount of money, one weekend you can get enlightened. I remember in the 60s, in the 1960s, in California, people set up certain businesses, enlightenment services. The advertisement I remember very well. If you go to India, it will take 12 years of hardship. Okay. $50, 30 minutes, you can get enlightened. They were just using psychedelic machines. You put up certain visuals and certain sounds, it'll just blow your mind apart. Because of the sounds and the visuals, when you come out, you come in a daze. You feel like you have really gotten somewhere. This used to be the advertisement. $50, 30 minutes. If you go to India, 12 years of hardship. Here, it's California, quick, new technology. These 1960 machines, this old technology has now infiltrated into India. Some people have installed these machines and they are claiming within a weekend they can enlighten you. You cannot hallucinate about it. If you're sincere, you would know that it is not so. But if it's a part of the race that you want to get enlightened before somebody, of course you can declare, I'm enlightened. It is just that these kind of deceptions are not new on the planet. They've been happening for a long time. But now modern technology has come to aid them better, to give them an expanded sense of many things. Much experimentation was done during the 60s and 70s about these things. One is with the psychedelic machines, another is with psychedelic drugs. You take an LSD and people claim they're enlightened because they had an expanded sense just for a while and then they came back. If they overdid it, then they lost everything, they cracked up in so many ways or even died. Many people mentally cracked up because of excessive use of psychedelic drugs. But for those few moments, they really felt enlightened, or at least they thought so. This is not something that you do. This is not something that you can do. It is just that if you cultivate the system, your body, mind, emotion and energy to its peak possibility, then an absolutely wonderful flower blossoms within you. Not something that you did, you just waited with the right kind of conditions and it happened. See, about dreams becoming reality, one part of it is There are various aspects to it. We'll just handle two aspects which are relevant to you right now. One part of it is in the subconscious mind. I think we looked at this some time ago. Because there is the time and space thing becomes fluid. What is then is now. So there is a perception of it. It's not because you dreamed it became a reality. Because it already is a reality, it's happened. There was a very interesting situation that happened in a certain physical research laboratory in England. This laboratory is known as the D-Labor laboratory, which is among the premier physical research institutes in the world. They developed a certain photofilm. Photofilms come with different levels of sensitivity, like 100 ASA, 200 ASA, whatever. They developed a highly sensitive photofilm. So they wanted to just try it out, loaded it on a camera, took it out into the garden, and there was a rosebud. So they just went and took a picture of the rosebud. They wanted some subject. So when they developed and printed it, they found an image of a full-blown flower. They just couldn't believe this. They thought they could have made a mistake and took the picture again and again. And they found every time a full-blown flower, not a bud. Because when the bud is there, the flower is already there in a very subtle way. So in many ways, it's always true with life. But getting it on a photofilm was an incredible thing. We are always aware that's how it is, but getting it on a photofilm is another thing. That is one aspect. Because of time and space mix-up, you're seeing certain things. Another aspect is because once you see it once or twice, then somewhere inside you are becoming like an oracle. That's human mind, that you would like to predict the future of the very world itself. And there is a part of you, there is always a part of this in every human being, which tries to look for things. It may be unconscious, but there is something in you which is looking to see, isn't it there in everybody? Trying to have visions and wanting to know what's going to happen tomorrow, this kind of thing. So once the mind starts projecting, and it projects best when you're half asleep, half awake kind of state. When it starts projecting, now you imagine something, but you make it a reality tomorrow. That is also possible. I would say at this stage in your life, don't attach any importance, even if a few of them come true, okay? Not all of them are coming true, just a few are coming true. Even if they come true, don't attach any significance to your dreams, because it's like a Pandora's box. If you open it, you can't handle it. So much will come out of it, you won't be able to handle it. It's better it's shut. Just with your logical mind and a little bit of, looking at life, you can handle your life quite well. You don't need visions to handle your simple process of life,
I do not understand how emotions and thoughts can be physical.
First of all, this distinction between emotion and thought, it doesn't really exist. What you call as emotion is just the juicier part of the thought. Yes? The way you think is the way you feel, isn't it so? Right now, I think this is a wonderful person. Now I have sweet emotions towards him. Now I think he's a horrible man. Now I have ugly emotions towards him. Can I think he's a horrible man and have sweet emotions towards him? Can I think he's a beautiful man and have ugly emotions towards him? Is it possible? No, because the way you think is the way you feel. And the other way around also, the way you feel is the way you think. You have sweet emotions towards somebody, whichever way you look at them, everything about them looks beautiful. Yes? Yes or no? Once you have sweet emotions towards somebody, do you see your thoughts start telling you all kinds of beautiful things about them? But suppose suddenly the sweetness of emotion went away tomorrow, suddenly your mind starts telling you all the horrible things this person is. Yes or no? Because thought and emotion are not separate. Thought is dry, emotion is juicy, but it's the same thing. So let's not make a distinction. So how is this physical? I think we already looked at this yesterday. Because today, you know, they can measure your thought on a meter. Yes? You know this? They can attach wires and cables to your head and measure the level of activity of the mind, thought in the mind. Yes, you know this. Some time ago they put me in a machine, usually I don't put myself to such indignities. I gave in because of some social nonsense. And they put me on this machine, they want to study my gamma rays or whatever. And then it seems all the machines just went flat, they said, "You're dead." I said, "That's a good diagnosis." So they said, "You must be dead or you're brain dead." I said, "Yes." If it can be measured, it has to be physical, isn't it? Yes or no? Yes. On a meter, on a physical machine, if it has to be measured, it has to be physical. It may be subtle, but still physical. Your thought is very much physical. It's about the physical and it is physical. It cannot exist without the physicality of the brain, isn't it so? If you scoop out your brain, can you think? No. So it is very physical. Like the light bulb is physical, the light is also physical, isn't it? But light is not something you can catch like this, but still it is physical. It is very much physical. Maybe you don't like it, "Oh, my emotions are so sweet, how can it be physical?" It is physical. What's wrong with the physical? Nothing wrong with the physical. Somebody has told you something wrong with the physical. Nothing wrong with the physical. What's wrong with the physical? Physical is the creation, isn't it? Yes? Only if creation is beautiful, only if you experience creation as a very beautiful thing, then creator becomes significant. If creation is horrible, creator must be even more horrible. Yes or no? If this body is horrible, God must be the most horrible creature, isn't it so? Yes or no? Yes. You don't like it? It's okay, he is horrible.
When you say that yourself and your body have to go together, that is clear to me. But like mind goes somewhere else. Mind doesn't go with you all the time. You are sitting here, but mind can be elsewhere. So that can be separate at times it can be with you. So this is my first question, and after you
Let's
answer
go
me,
one at a time. Now, your mind also doesn't go anywhere. It is here thinking about something. Does it go somewhere? The mind doesn't go anywhere. It is here and thinking about something else, but still it is here, isn't it? Neither your body goes somewhere, nor your mind goes somewhere, nor you go somewhere. They're always one composite whole. If you want to do anything, you have to do something that works for all of them. You can't handle this separately, that one separately, and this one separately. They're always together, isn't it? Your mind doesn't go anywhere. Did you lose it? It is just that you're being deceived by the imagination of your mind. It is sitting here and imagining something. It is not going anywhere, but you are so identified and lost that You think the mind is going somewhere. Mind doesn't travel anywhere, it's very much here, isn't it? You need to understand this. Why your mind is going on with uncontrollable, endless thought is, you're identified with things that you are not. The moment you get identified with something that you are not, then mind is non-stop activity. You're identified with too many things and you're trying to stop your mind. I'm telling you, if you try for 1,000,000 years, it's not going to happen. It cannot happen. If you take away your wrong identifications, then you will see this moment, mind will be just like a mirror, not saying anything, just reflecting everything. That's how mind should be. Your mind as a mechanism works best only when there is clarity in it, isn't it? Isn't it so? Your mind is not here to think up all kinds of fancy things. That's a distraction in life. Your mind is here to give you clarity and penetration into life. But right now, mind is just a huge ball of confusion, simply because you got identified with so many things that you're not, and now you're trying to hold it back. There is no way to hold it back. You ate very bad food, now there's gas in the stomach. You can't hold it. You've eaten bad food, the consequence is there. You got wrongly identified with too many things, now this is going on endlessly. You cannot stop it, it doesn't matter what you do. You think of God, God himself will go to take you to many places. Now you're sitting here and you're trying to meditate, but you're thinking of your bar or restaurant or friend or cinema or something. Now people told you, think about God, everything will be okay. If you think about Rama or Krishna, then you will find you will go to cinema with Rama. That's the nature of the mind. Rama himself will take you to the bar, Rama himself will take you to the restaurant. You can't stop it. Because you gotten yourself identified with things that you're not, no way to stop it. So what's being done here is not about controlling your mind, to bring an awareness as to what you're not. Right now, to start with, the most fundamental identity is your body. You're identified with your body, the clothes that you wear, your hairstyle, your goatee also, aren't you? Very much identified, isn't it? Your wife, your children, your family, your education, your religion, endless number of identifications. With all these identities, you want a quiet mind? There's no such thing. That's why we gave you a simple device called shunya, where you create a little distance from the mind. Once distance happens, even if it's a noisy mind, still it doesn't matter. Disengaging from the mind. Once you're disengaged from the mind, you're disengaged from all identity, because it's the mind which manufactures identifications, isn't it? So, don't think of all kinds of things, just employ the device. Things will happen. Things that you have not imagined will happen. And the history of the planet is such, it has been constantly strife-ridden, please see. It's not just today. People are always thinking, why today there is so much violence? It is not so. Violence has always been there on the planet. Always. It is just that today if 50 people die in Iraq, the blood splatters into your house through the television. Yes? The Iraqi blood splatters into your own house, isn't it? But 1,000 years ago, if 1,000 people died in Iraq, you would be still here peacefully eating your morning dosa. Because nobody would tell you about it. So today, wherever something happens, and somehow the media is only focused on death and rape and killing and this and that, All the time this is spilling into your house every day through the television or newspaper or whichever way. But 1,000 years ago, even if 10,000 people died somewhere, you would be still sitting here thinking the whole world is Ramarajya or whatever. Even in Ramarajya, there was only violence, isn't it so? Yes? Deception, violence, jealousy, hatred, this is the whole of Ramarajya also, isn't it so? Do you see this? Rama went to forest, why? Jealousy. Rama went to Sri Lanka, why? Greed. Somebody's greed, isn't it? And endless battle, on the way battle, at Sri Lanka battle, then burn the whole place down, come back, then you still can't keep your wife, you have to send her to the forest because of some other reason, and she dies there. Now you glorify everything, she went into the earth, everybody goes there only. Where else do you think you will go? You think you'll go to sky? You will also go into the earth only. But if we send you into the earth right now, there is no glorification, it's gory, isn't it? But Sita went into the earth, you glorify it, because 5,000 years later, you can do many things to it, you know. It's a terrible thing, isn't it? A pregnant woman, a woman who is full, with a child in her stomach, not one, two. Maybe they didn't know it's two, but anyway. Sending her to the forest to fend for herself in the forest is a terrible thing, isn't it? So it has always been happening, I want you to know. You are not willing to look at it, that's all. Violence, greed, anger, hatred, problems, this is not new to this generation. It's always been. It is just that we are talking about it like never before because we are seeing it like never before. Our ability to see across the world is so greatly enhanced, so we are talking about it. Another reason why we are talking about it is because we were never equipped for destruction or construction like never before we are equipped right now, both for destruction and construction, isn't it? Because we are so heavily equipped, now we have to think little more before we take a step. There was a time, if you got angry, you could just pick up the stick and go. Either you kill that man or he kills you, that's all there is between the two of you. You know, it was always a duel, but not anymore. Today if you get angry, you may end the world. So we are talking more about it. But the human strife has always been. So why is this so? Because simply we are just trapped in the survival process. We are not looking beyond that.
A very dear friend of mine is completely consumed with cancer, and she is very, very, very ill. Is there anything that I can do or she can do to come through this?
Come through means get cured?
Yes.
Or die peacefully?
Get better, get better. Get better, get well.
Now, I am not talking with any disregard to your friend, but I want you to understand, people need to die. When and how is the only question, isn't it? So if death comes to us, yes, we will do everything possible to save ourselves. But if it goes beyond that, let us learn to die gracefully. Let's not fight with it and fight with it like endlessly, you know. It's a horrible way to die. The way people are dying in Western countries is really a horrible way to die. Even though they're 85, 90, staying in a hospital with full of pipes and needles all over them, this is not. It's okay if you die 2 years early, what's the problem? You die peacefully and gracefully, that's more important, isn't it? See, death is the last thing that you do in your life, shouldn't you do it gracefully? We must learn to accept death as a part of our life. We are not wishing death, but when it comes, let us learn to go through it gracefully, you know. If there is a possibility of saving ourselves, living beyond that, that is fine. But what I see in all the geriatrics homes in United States, Many people are living beyond their death just because of medical support. And it's such a torture to themselves and to everybody. You should see the way in some of the homes they're being treated. Not because of anything, the people who work there after some time they get irritated because these dead bodies walking around. They don't understand anything, they've forgotten everything, they're like lost all their senses because they've lived beyond their time. If there was no too much medical input, they would have gracefully died at a certain point, isn't it? There is no sense in stretching it 1 more month, 1 more month, 1 more month, it doesn't make any sense. But life is not understood that way, we are thinking of always stretching it. So if somebody's body is broken beyond redemption, let's learn to die gracefully. Let us make the person understand, it's okay, it's all right, We're all in the queue, aren't we? So you are ahead of me, isn't that great? In any queue you want to be ahead of everybody, isn't it? So I'm not trying to make fun of somebody's illness, but we should understand where one thing stops and the other thing begins, isn't it? Existence perfect? The world is perfect right now? Huh? You said it's perfect. It's perfect? The world is perfect right now. Looks like you had a good breakfast and came. You ask those 50% of the population on the planet who don't get to eat properly every day, you ask them if the world is perfect. When stomach is full, we make one kind of philosophy. When stomach is empty, we make another kind of philosophy, isn't it? Is the world perfect right now? If you transform yourself, you can do a lot with the world. If you're unable to transform yourself, you can only mess with the world, isn't it? You just look into yourself and see how much nonsense is there. Is it there or not? It's not there. Do you go through 24 hours in absolute bliss?
I don't feel sorrow, I don't carry things in my mind, I don't get bogged down.
Life has not knocked you sufficiently yet. Really. Life hasn't knocked you around sufficiently. You ask many other people here. Those who have been knocked around by life, they experience life in a different way. You wait for some time. You married?
Is this a blessing or a curse?
So, existence is perfect. The world is perfect, everything is okay with me and the world. Why any change? We must be living in a dream. If you just open your eyes and look around, you will see, doesn't matter what's your philosophy, enormous suffering in the world, isn't it? Too much. If you relate yourself to people around you, I'm not talking about that man in the slum, even the so-called well-to-do, the level of suffering that they go within themselves is untold. Too much suffering is happening in the world. Nobody with eyes can say it is perfect. If you look around, you'll see a lot of suffering, isn't it so? I'm not trying to paint a negative picture, but it's there, isn't it? Many of these people work in hospitals, there are doctors here, you ask them, their patients suffering and their own suffering, isn't it there every day? See, accepting somebody else's suffering is easy. But when it comes to you, that's when the problem is, isn't it? Now when you are being eaten, then you cannot talk with the same nonchalance, isn't it? Isn't it so? See, this is all like… Some time ago, I'm in an international conference where, discussions about poverty, elevation and things like this are going on. So when a very pious, religious-looking person stands up and says, "Isn't this all divine plan? Why are we discussing about all these problems and trying to change all these things? Isn't this all divine plan?" Yes. Somebody's stomach is empty, it must be divine plan. If your stomach is empty, you'll have your own plan, won't you? Won't you? Yes. So, half the people are suffering right now, but it's okay, existence is perfect. But if the suffering comes to you, then it's not perfect, we want to do something about it. Isn't it so? So, all the things that are happening in Madras city, it is not perfect. And if you allow it to be that way, it'll not be long before it catches up with you also. Isn't it so? Yes or no? If you just allow it to be as it is not long before it comes and really catches up with you, isn't it? Somebody is dying, it's okay, it's natural, after all, tiger eats a goat. But tomorrow when your child gets eaten, then things will come up, isn't it? So don't get into such philosophies. Existence is a mess right now. When I say existence, I'm not talking about larger existence. Let's say the world. If man disappears from this planet, then everything is perfect. That I would agree. Then it's just a natural process. But now, this is not a natural order of life. This is a very unnatural order of life that we have created. If a tiger eats a goat, it just eats one goat in 15 days. Do you know this? Do you know a tiger eats once in 12 to 15 days? Not every day. If it makes one kill, next 12-15 days it doesn't eat anything. But man's nature is not like that. He wants to make a kill every minute of his life. Isn't it so? So this is not a natural order of life. If you went by the natural order, stomach is full, you shouldn't touch anything in the world. That's not how it is. If your stomach gets full, you want to get the whole world for yourself. That's the way you are made. So if you don't bring sense into yourself, then, one man will rise one day who is so powerful, who won't let anybody live. Such things have happened in the past, hasn't it? Even now, there are many, including you, waiting for this, but fortunately you're not so capable. If all of them became industrious, 6 billion people if they became industrious, the way we are going, the type of activity that we're performing on the planet, within probably 25 years the planet will be finished. If all the 6 billion people become extremely active, half of them are lazy. The lazy are saving the planet. That's not good, The intelligent should save the planet, but the lazy and the useless are saving the planet. That's not a good way to survive, isn't it? But that's how it is happening right now. So perfection, things will be perfect only if you and me are dead. We are alive, there's no perfection, something can be done about it. Isn't it so? Yes? When you go to your grave, you will be perfect. But as long as you stand here alive, there is something we can do about it. So we're just trying to do that. That's a sign of aliveness, that we still believe, we still see there is a room for enhancing the possibility of life. Now, is this not enough? Actually, within you, there is something within you which will not settle for anything. Do you see this? Is it there or no? You may try to kill it in so many ways, with so many philosophies, but you can't kill it. There is something in you which won't settle, which wants to. Everything, nothing less than everything. Less than the infinite, it will not settle. So I'm saying, why don't we give it a conscious expression? Anyway, it is finding an unconscious expression. Why don't we give it a conscious expression? That's all the yoga is about. You're already seeking it unconsciously. We want to set up a process so that you seek it consciously. That's all the change we're trying to do. Is it better to seek something consciously than unconsciously? It's a better way to approach it.
I had a question about sexual appetite. I think for men it's almost that compulsive, the compulsive nature that we have adopted. And I'm wondering whether or not if one becomes more spiritual, their sexual appetite also becomes not so much a compulsive appetite.
See, every aspect of your life, a human being is capable of making it conscious. That includes sexuality. You can make that also into your conscious process. So once it's conscious process, it is no more something which decides the course of your life. It is not something that is compulsively working within you. It is something that you decide. That's how human life should be, isn't it? Everything you decide. You're not pushed or pulled into anything. And because it's compulsive, how many varieties of trouble people have gotten into, isn't it? If it was a conscious process, they would know when, where, how, what, isn't it? Just see the kind of amount of abuse, sexual abuse that is happening. You're not even leaving infants. That's not normal, isn't it? That's not even human. That's not even animal, it's sub-animal, isn't it? Because it's such a compulsive force. And yes, it's most terrible for the child, but my sympathy is also for the man. How degenerated he must be, how compulsive he must be to do something like that. That a human being can reduce himself to that level. How compulsive a force it should be within himself to do such a thing, isn't it? So that's simply because no conscious process has been brought forth into life. If only if people did something consciously, at least for 10 minutes a day, you would see all these things would go down dramatically, dramatically. They're not starved of sex. It is not because sex is not available for them. It is because it's such a compulsive force that they have to do something like this, isn't it? And it's becoming a big thing, not just in one place, worldwide. It is becoming such a big thing. It is not that it's not been in the past, it's probably more coming out now than ever before. But it's always been like this. People are clothed in human body, but living like absolute animals within themselves, doing things that even an animal would hesitate to do, isn't it? Even an animal would hesitate to do certain things that human beings are doing. So it has to become a conscious process. It need not be a drive. It need not be a compulsive drive. It can be a conscious process. Once it is conscious, how much of what you need in your life can be decided by you. Whether something is needed or not also can be decided by you, isn't it? So, is it necessary to do this Shambhavi Mahamudra to get enlightened? Isn't there another way? It is not that because of Shambhavi you get enlightened. No. We are just trying to create the necessary atmosphere in the body, in the mind, in the energy system, so that flowers can bloom. If I put manure, will a flower bloom? No. But yes, isn't it? Will manure produce a flower? No. Will water produce a flower? No. If I peck at the ground, will it produce a flower? No. But if you do all these things, you do have flowers, isn't it? Just like that. Why Gautama asked them to be free of Vedas? Gautama is asking you to become free of everything that's old. He's telling you, drop your past, it doesn't matter how glorious it was. Learn to live this moment. Because when you have a very glorious past, it becomes a disease. That's become the problem with India. They have seen a very glorious past. No other culture has seen that glory in their past. So you keep gloating on your past so much that you forget to live your present. So Gautama said, drop all your nonsense and see how to handle this moment. In India, people, for the Christians, the Son of God came to save them, but you crucified him. For the Muslims, the messenger came. Whatever happened, happened. But in India, people are very proud. God himself came 9 times. Do you know this? God came in 9 incarnations. In other places, he sent his servants or his son. To us, God himself came 9 times. So I always tell them, now don't you think this is something to be proud of? God came 9 times and he couldn't awaken you. Then that means you're hopeless. 9 times God came down himself, and if he couldn't get you going, then no salvation. So, when your past is glorious, you tend to gloat and drown in that. So Gautama said, burn your Vedas. Right now, all the scriptures in the world, I think we would do a great service. Don't have to burn them. For all the scriptures in the world are locked up somewhere in a time capsule for 500 years, and people are allowed to live with their own intelligence. We would be doing a great service to humanity, really. Without your Bibles and Qurans and Gitas, if people had to figure out their own life without God's word always assisting them, I'm sure they would live more intelligently. Isn't it so? All scriptures of the world, they're locked up for 500 years. People learn to live out of their own intelligence, and then if they're opened up, maybe it'll have more meaning for them. That's what Gautama also said, probably in a different way.
One of the things that actually got me interested in Isha Yoga was a study of Zen Buddhism. And a lot of the things they say are very similar to what's being taught here. But would you say it's an inferior method of meditating to follow the breath, which is what they primarily use, and they sit for extended periods of time?
See, now first of all you said whatever they do in Zen Buddhism, that's what we're doing here. First I want you to get this. As it is, Buddhist way of life is just about 2400 years old. Zen is just about probably somewhere between 8 to 1200 years old. The word Zen. Dhyan. You know what's dhyan? Dhyan means generally… See, the English word meditation doesn't mean anything, this must be understood. You can close your eyes and sit, and that's called meditation. You can close your eyes and sit and do many things. You can do japa, tapa, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, pratyahara. Any number of possibilities are there. Or you might have just mastered the art of sleeping in vertical postures. So, the word dhyan indicates a particular dimension. Dhyan was taken on to outside the country, to China, where it became Chan. Chan, somewhere down, when it flowed down to Far Eastern countries, it became Zen. So, what became Zen is just a mispronunciation of the word dhyan or a language transmutation that happened as it traveled from culture to culture. So they're talking about dhyan. Dhyan is of various aspects. I cannot go into all the details now. Now they're teaching you watching of the breath, which Buddha called as Satipatthana, but for ages yoga called it Anapanasati Yoga. So these are not new to Buddhism, these have been always there. One of the simplest ways to become meditative is to watch the breath. It's very simple. If you're just watching the process of breath as probably, I don't know what type you've been exposed to, but generally they're teaching you to watch the sensations that are created by the breath. You don't see the breath, you only see the sensations that are caused by the movement of the breath. That is the most rudimentary way of doing it. There are other ways of doing the breath which are completely different. In yoga, breath is known as the kurmanadi. If you follow the breath, not by watching sensations, there are other ways to follow the breath itself, not the sensation. If you follow the breath, it will take you to that point where you are tied to the body. See, if I take away your breath now, your body will fall away from you, isn't it? Isn't it so? Right now it's your breath which is tying you to the body. So, not by watching the sensations, if you follow the very breath, right now you have no way of knowing the breath, you only know the sensations caused by the breath. Is it so? You understand what I'm saying? So if you follow the very breath, if you follow the kurmanadi, it will take you to that point where you're in touch with your body. Now you can make that point into your conscious process. That is, you're holding… Now if I hold this consciously. Like this, you can hold your body consciously. If you want, you can drop it any moment to get that freedom. So whatever is being taught as Zen is just… I'm not saying it's inferior, it's a beautiful way. It's a very beautiful way, there's no question about that, if it's properly being transmitted. I don't know what kind of Zen you're doing in Chicago, but if you receive Zen properly, it's a wonderful way. And it's not just about meditation, it's about changing your whole life. The very way you move, the very way you keep the body, the very way you do things, everything has to be integrated. Just watching the breath won't do it. Just watching the breath won't do it. The Zen monasteries, you need to understand, Zen was fundamentally for the monks. It's a 24-hour practice. It's a 24-hour practice. Every aspect, the way you cook, the way you cut the vegetable, the way you keep your garden, the way you keep the place, everything is part of the system. Only then Zen is truly an effective system. You just do Zen for half an hour or 1 hour, it doesn't mean much. It may have its benefits, but it doesn't mean much as a spiritual process. You must transform your whole life. Only then it has an overall impact on the system. See, when a child is handicapped, either physically or even mentally, a child is not suffering, parents are suffering, isn't it? A child is incapable but not suffering. Have you noticed this? Even a mentally handicapped child, he's not suffering, actually he's more free of suffering than a lot of other children. But parents are suffering because their child is not like somebody else's child. It's the parent who is suffering because the parent knows the consequence of this child living in the society. He doesn't have certain capabilities, what will happen to him tomorrow. With these concerns, the parent is suffering. Isn't it so? The child is not suffering. The child is incapable. Handicapped means just that. Handicapped, the word itself says that. So, a handicap has come, why? A certain manufacturing defect, that's what you're talking about, isn't it? All this may sound very brutal to you, the way I'm talking. It's very brutal. But I didn't create this brutality. Life is like this, isn't it? Yes? Your creator is brutal, I'm only explaining his brutality. I am bringing clarity to his brutality. I did not create this brutality, isn't it? Yes or no? Yes. Somebody is born with half a brain, I didn't create it. But if you are saying this is the work of the creator, this is creator's brutality. Either you see it the way it is and see what we can do out of it, or you don't see it. Today, we no more call them as handicapped children, we call them special children. They're special because they're not like other children, they're different. That's a good way to look at it. They're special children. It is just that because you're comparing the child to some other child, you are thinking it is handicapped. Otherwise, it is a special child. Suppose, do you know, you're printing currency notes. All 100 rupee notes are supposed to be one way except the number. But 100 rupee note went crazy like this. Do you know a collector would pay a million rupees to buy that 100 rupee note? It's a special currency note, a freaky one. You can't buy anything out of it. But still it is a special currency note. This is just like this. A child, something has gone, not the way it should go normally, it's gone some other way. You don't have to make everything into suffering, that's what I'm saying. People who have normal children, who have all their limbs and everything in place, are they not suffering? Because the child is not listening to what you think they should do, you will suffer, isn't it? So your suffering has nothing to do with the handicap, nothing to do with well-being. Your suffering is just that if anything happens that you think should not happen, you will suffer. Or in other words, you want the whole existence to happen the way you think it should be. It'll never be so. In what form it comes to you, it doesn't matter. It comes to you in the form of a handicapped child, it comes to you in the form of a ruined business, it comes to you in the form of death, sickness, which way it comes, it doesn't matter. But your demand is just this: existence should happen according to your will. It will not happen that way.
Then what do you do if it doesn't? How do you deal with it if it doesn't go according to your will?
If the whole existence goes according to your will…
It doesn't go according to your will.
No, suppose it goes according to your will.
Your own existence.
Yes. The whole existence goes according to your will, Seema. Where should I go? It should happen according to my will also, isn't it? So some things happen your way, something happen my way. Why have we sought a relationship? Because you find yourself that without a relationship, if you do not have any kind of relationship in your life, then you become depressed. So, fundamentally you're seeking a relationship because you want to be happy, you want to be joyful. Or in other words, you're trying to use the other as a source of your happiness. When you're trying to use the other person as a source of your happiness, what it means is, your happiness is not on self-start. It's like this. Maybe nobody is old enough for this, but here… Let's say you bought a car in 1940s. If you got yourself a car in 40s, along with the car you have to get yourself 2 servants, because morning push start. 50s if you got a car, 1 servant would do because crank start. Now all your automobiles are self-start, isn't it? But your happiness is still on push start, isn't it? Somebody has to push it a little bit, otherwise it won't get started. If you put your happiness on self-start, and now If you're happy by your own nature, now relationships will become a means for you to express your happiness, not to seek happiness. If you're forming relationships to seek happiness and trying to squeeze happiness out of somebody, and that person is trying to squeeze happiness out of you, now this is going to be a painful relationship after some time. Initially it may be okay because something is being fulfilled. But if you have become a joy by yourself and you're forming relationships because you want to express your happiness, nobody's going to complain about you because you're in the process of expressing your joy, not seeking joy from the other person. So if your life becomes an expression of your joy, not in pursuit of happiness, then relationships will be naturally wonderful. You can hold 1,000,000 relationships and still hold them good. Now, this whole circus of trying to fulfill somebody else's expectations does not arise, because if you are an expression of joy, anyway they want to be with you. If you're trying to extract joy from them, then they want to avoid you. Yes? Shifting your life from pursuit of happiness to an expression of joyfulness is what needs to happen if relationships have to really work on all levels.
Back I read about Nostradamus predictions. But around after 2043, for 1,000 years, people all will be happy and joyful. So the foundation is already laid in India, and that is Isha Foundation. Is that right?
You better stand up and work for it to make it happen. 1,000 years, if people have to live happily, we have to lay a proper foundation, isn't it? If really people have to live happily for 1,000 years, is that your wish? Yes, at least for 1,000.
Not from 2043.
That's better. That's better now, you're getting better. Now if you want that to happen for next 1,000 years, what kind of foundation we must lay? Really a solid foundation which cannot be disturbed with the process of life, because the processes of life will anyway happen. People are born, people will die, people will go through injuries, people will go through disease, all these things will be happening, isn't it? Yes? Somebody that we think is everything to us is going to fall dead tomorrow, all these things will happen in our lives, isn't it? So if people have to be happy, they must learn to be happy beyond these things, otherwise there's no way to be happy. Because in everybody's life always this issue is there, your child goes out, anything may happen. We don't wish it, but it may happen, isn't it? And just the thought that it may happen can shatter you. It need not happen. Just the thought, my child has gone out, what could happen? That is enough. It need not really happen, isn't it? So, Nostradamus predictions, people are always predicting what happens after 1,000 years or 10,000 years, because it's very easy to do that. Can you predict what will happen in the next 5 minutes? You cannot do that. Shall I tell you what will happen after 10,000 years? Are you interested? I can give you graphic detail, but the only thing is, neither you will be here nor I will be here, so there will be no problem. People are becoming popular like this. Somebody predicts, 100 years later, in Tamil Nadu there is going to be a huge flood. Do you know this? People are all excited, this man has predicted what will happen 100 years later. I tell them, let them predict what will happen in the next 10 minutes. Why 100 years? 10 minutes later, what's going to happen if you can predict, it's valuable to you. 100 years later, what's going to happen is of no value to you. Whether 1,000 people are going to you said 2048? I won't be here. I have decided on that. Most probably you also, you may be there. Many of us won't be here. So, these predictions are going on. It happened like this. Usually these predictions come true. You know why? Some time ago, I happened to be in Mangalore. You know Mangalore? Not Bangalore, Mangalore. There is a very old homeopathic doctor, I happen to know him for many years. So, he was very old, I thought I will visit him. Over 80 years of age, but still sits in his clinic and does something. So I just went to visit him, not as a patient, I just gone to visit him. Then I just noticed there was a poster about advertising an antidote for all kinds of snakes, for snake bites, an antidote. It claimed that it works for all kinds of snakes. I looked at it and asked the doctor, "Doctor, how is this possible? Why are you putting up this poster here? How can any antidote work for all kinds of snakes? Because if you know something about this, fundamentally, some snake venoms work on your cardiovascular system, some work on your nervous system. You need a different kind of antidote for them. How can it be possible that it works for all snakes?" So the doctor said, "See, 90% of the Indian snakes are non-poisonous. So 90% of the time it works." That is a pretty good success rate. 90% of the time it works, you know. Right now, the most important thing in the world is human consciousness. Tremendous technologies have come. All these technologies, if they have to become meaningful force in human well-being, it is first the human being that we need to work on. Great things are available in our hands, but if we don't have human beings who are in a certain level of perception and wisdom, then all these technologies can be a big disaster for humanity. At least if you were not empowered with technology, maybe we didn't have to so much bother about human consciousness, we could have allowed another 500 years of stupidity. But not anymore, the way the technology is growing, if human beings don't grow accordingly, we are going to make a big disaster out of everything. Do you see the disaster always lurking on the edge? It can just happen any moment. So when we are hugely empowered, when we are slowly, with the aid of science and technology, we are becoming like giants. If you were just an ant, it was okay how you walk, you can crawl upon anybody, it's all right. Once you become a giant, you better walk carefully, isn't it? Extremely carefully, otherwise every step will be disaster. So in many ways, humanity has become a huge giant, hugely empowered. It's time that they walk very, very cautiously with full awareness, otherwise they will step upon themselves and finish it off. There are some things that need to happen around us. This is not my mission, it is not my life's mission that I have to fulfill it. If it doesn't happen, I will die unsatisfied. There is no such thing for me. There are people for whom some things are needed. Anyway, we are doing some nonsense in our life. Let's do something useful, that's all. Anyway, some nonsense we have to do, isn't it? You cannot keep quiet. I can keep quiet without doing anything. You cannot keep quiet. Anyway, you will do something. Why don't you do something which is useful? Why don't you do something which will touch people's lives? That's all. So, reaching out to another human being need not happen because you have taken a vow, I'm going to do it. Keep your humanity active, anyway it will happen. How can you not do it? How can you not do it that you hold as a part of yourself? So when it comes from that, it'll happen gently, well. You take up a mission, somebody will become your enemy, you know. Whatever the mission, if you stand up for a mission, there'll be some other mission which will stand against you. So don't take up a mission, just keep your humanity in full force. What has to happen, what you can do will anyway happen. So, you yourself cannot go to the village, you yourself cannot go to the slum and do all that. Somebody else is doing it, at least Do something to make that happen, that's all.
When I'm dreaming at night, it seems real to me. I couldn't differentiate if the people that exist in my dream, they seems very real. And I can talk to them, I can touch them, and events seem to happen too. So when I awake, I know that it's illusions. So is that the same thing for my life right now? How real is this life? Would it be possible when one day when I awake, all these are just illusion to me? All people is going to be gone.
The problem is you're reading bits and pieces of Zen. Okay? Bits and pieces of Zen are dangerous. Bits and pieces of anything is dangerous. Now, what you're saying is true in a way, because 99% of your life is just thought and emotion. Thought and emotion is just a projection of life, not life, isn't it? When 99% of the time you're only thinking about life, emotion is also a kind of thought, a juicier thought, isn't it? Thought is dry, emotion is juicy, but still a thought, isn't it? The way you think is the way you feel, isn't it so? Yes? Isn't it so? Now if you think, oh, this is a wonderful person, you'll have sweet emotions towards that person. Oh, this is a horrible person, you'll have nasty emotions towards that person. You can't think this is a wonderful person and have nasty emotions. You can't think this is a horrible person and have sweet emotions, isn't it so? Because the way you think is the way you feel. Thought and emotion are not different. They're the same thing, they're just thought. One is dry, another is juicy. Because it's juicy, it has a drag time, so you think they're different. So you can be thinking like this. Today you can be thinking this is a very wonderful person, tomorrow morning he does something that you don't like, suddenly you can think he's a horrible guy. Your thought immediately takes a right angle turn. But emotion cannot turn so quick. It takes a long turn. It takes a few days or a month, but after some time it'll come and join the thought, isn't it so? Yes? It has a drag time. Emotion will not turn immediately, so you think they're different, they're not different. They are same, it is just thought, one is dry, another is juicy. So your whole life is just thought and emotion. So it is very much like a dream. It is. So, now that you were onto Zen, you must know about Chuang Tzu, who went about doing this. Chuang Tzu was a great Zen master. In his monastery he had many monks and he is a recognized master. One day morning, suddenly he is in great state of misery. So when they saw the master in misery, everybody got terrified. If the master is in misery, something really bad must have happened because always he is joyful and nice. So senior-most monks slowly approached him and asked, "Master, what is happening?" Said, "Don't you disturb me, I am in a deep distress, get away." They said, "If you are in distress, that should be death for us. Please tell us what is causing distress to you." Then Chuang Tzu said, "Oh, yesterday night in my dream I was a butterfly." And the monk said, "What is wrong being a butterfly? We've been many things, sometimes we've been pigs, we've been birds, we've been many things. That is no problem, butterfly is quite good. What's wrong with a butterfly?" Said, "You idiots, you don't understand, when I was a butterfly, I actually flew. I went and sat on the flower, I could feel the flower, I could smell the flower, I could taste the flower, it was all real. Now I don't know whether I am Chuang Tzu dreaming to be a butterfly or am I a butterfly dreaming to be a Chuang Tzu, which is true, because both look equally vivid and real. When you live just on the thought process, this is how it is." He is using it as a method to shock his monks out of their stupor of spirituality, because people are reading sutras and this and that, they think what they read and what they think is spirituality. So he is trying to knock their psychological structure out so that they become existential. If you're experiencing life, not thought, not emotion, life, if you're experiencing life as such a question will not come. But when most of your life is just thought and emotion, it is very true, it is very much a dream, it's just another projection.
I don't know any kid who doesn't want to learn. You know, children are born with immense possibilities, I mean infinite possibilities, and they have a massive appetite to learn. I mean, think what happens in the first 18 months of life. Children learn to speak. Little babies in the first 18 months learn to speak, and nobody teaches them. You don't. If you're a parent, you didn't teach your child to speak. It's far too complicated. You know, you wouldn't have the time and they wouldn't have the patience. You know, it's not like you sit your child down at the age of 18 months and say, look, we need to talk. You know, or more specifically, you do. And you probably noticed your mother and I have been making all these noises for the past 18 months. Well, some of these are names of things. We call them nouns. There are other noises we make. They're not names of things. They're names of things you can do with things. We call them verbs. If you change the noise, you can say what you will do and what you have done. And don't worry about the subjunctive. Nobody gets it. You know, it doesn't work like that. You know, kids absorb language through their skin. You nudge them, you correct them, they mimic you, but you don't speak, you don't teach them. And by the way, if they grow up in a home where there are 6 languages spoken, they'll just learn all of those. Kids love to learn. The problem they have is with education, which is the time when we start to decide systematically to teach them things. And many of the rhythms of education are obstructive to the natural rhythms of learning. So my premise is that children are born with immense natural capacities. They have a tremendous appetite to learn, and education has become the problem. And I'd love to know what Sadhguru has to say about this.
I have addressed education in 3 different dimensions, which people around me are still trying to grasp why these 3 different things. There is one form of education which is called Isha Vidya. I think they might have showed something about that. This is for the rural masses in India, where the problem is they are in an economic and social pit which they cannot get out by themselves. The only ladder for them is education, employment-generating education. But there are reasonably well-to-do people where they might have gone through that in the previous generation, but this generation need not think about how to earn my living. They have to look at how to expand who they are. So we have Isha Homeschool, which caters to that, because this kind of education costs money. So only people who can afford it can do that. Costs money means not like how it costs here. By Indian standards, it costs money. And there's another form of education where people are not interested in serving this machine or that machine, they want individuals to blossom. So we have Isha Samskriti, where there is no academic education of any kind. They only learn music, dance, art, Sanskrit language, Kalari, which is the mother of all martial arts, and yoga, English language as a passport to the world. So these children are a treat to watch. This is how children should have been. Just to give you a glimpse of what it is. At the age of 15, for 3 years, they go into monastic life. Compulsorily they must go on, compulsorily they must come out at 18. They cannot continue. This is for discipline and focus. So I was to initiate these 15-year-olds, and these 60 days they are going through, from morning 3:30 to 9 in the evening, they are going through almost 8 hours of meditation, varieties of sadhana, completely silent for 60 days. 15-year-old kids, totally silent. So I want to see how they are, and I go there at 3:30 in the morning to see them. All these kids are just sitting like this, unmoving. I just looked at them and they were literally glowing. I sat there and wept because I have never seen children like this in my life. Definitely I was not like this when I was 15. I was nowhere near what they are today. But you can't make the entire world like that. This is an ideal to work towards. The idea of this kind of schooling is just to develop human body and human brain without any intention. Without any intention as to what they should become. They can become whatever they want. Only thing is, human body and human mind should grow to its fullest capability, and attention is the main thing. An indiscriminate and unprejudiced attention is what we're trying to evolve in the children, that they learn to pay attention to everything the same way, that you don't divide the world as something as good and something as bad, something high, something low, something divine, something devil, something filthy, something sacred. No, you learn to pay the same attention to everything. This is the fundamental of this form of education. In every way, comfort and convenience has come our way because of engineering the world. But human well-being will not come because of engineering or fixing the outside. If you fix the outside, it will become comfortable, convenient. But well-being will happen only if you fix this one, otherwise it will not happen. Whatever you do with the outside, you can never fix the outside 100% the way you want it. Not a single situation in your life happens 100% the way you want it, isn't it? You have some stake, a little bit happens your way, little bit happens my way, it's okay. The world is not happening your way, and not a single person in your life is happening 100% the way you want them, is that so? Your parents, your children, your spouse, your friend, your partner, does anybody happen 100% the way you want them? Has anybody happened? Not even your dog. These days they do their own thing, isn't it? Nobody happens your way, that's not the problem. The problem is, this one is not happening your way, that is the problem, isn't it? If this was happening the way you want it, how would you keep it? It's a question. If this one was happening 100% the way you want him, how would you keep him? Blissful or miserable? Happy and blissful. Absolutely blissful, isn't it? As pleasant as you can, isn't it? So, right now the problem is just this one is not happening the way you want it to be. Or this is happening accidentally. If you're an accidental being, if you're happening accidentally, you're always a potential calamity, isn't it? What is it, first of all, that you call as myself? When you say myself, what are the things you're referring to? You're not referring to your house, your car, your clothes, are you? When you say myself, you're talking about this one. Everything is happening the way you want it, but this one thing is not happening the way you want it, and that's misery, isn't it? Every activity, whatever you do, your business, why you build a business, why you build a family, why you're in pursuit of a career, why you're doing everything that you're doing, whether you're going to the temple or to the bar, you're still in pursuit of your well-being, isn't it so? Yes? The man who goes to the temple, he thinks that's where his well-being is. The man who goes to the bar, he thinks that's where his well-being is, isn't it so? Both are in pursuit of the same thing. Both are in pursuit of some kind of pleasantness. Well, some people want to go to heaven, why? Because the advertisements have always said heaven is a very pleasant place. If they had told you heaven is an unpleasant place, do you want to go there? So whether you are doing this or that, whether you want to be here or you want to go to heaven, still you are in pursuit of pleasantness. Especially, now all that is okay, but how can I be pleasant within myself? Have you met my mother-in-law? Have you seen my boss? I've seen all of them. especially if your outsides have become unpleasant, is it not all the more important that you keep your insides pleasant? For some reason, if the outside has turned unpleasant, is it extremely important that you keep your internal very, very pleasant? Because external pleasantness needs cooperation from many ingredients. Sometimes you manage it, sometimes you cannot. But your inner pleasantness, there's only one ingredient, yourself. This one thing should happen the way you want it, isn't it? The world may not cooperate, but I'm asking, are you willing to cooperate with your own well-being? How many of you have had at least one 24-hour segment in your life? In these many years of life, just one 24-hour segment where you were utterly blissful, not a moment of anxiety, not a moment of irritation, not a moment of anger, not a moment of disturbance. You went through 24 hours blissfully. Very, very few human beings can say yes to this. See, if one day went wrong, understandable. If not a single day has happened the way you want it, something very fundamental is off the mark, isn't it? Yes? If not even one 24 hours happened exactly the way you want it, something very basic is off the track, isn't it? This is because we are functioning accidentally. We are operating this human mechanism without any knowing about it, without any understanding about it. For example, you sat in your car, you don't know what these three pedals are, you kick any one of them whenever you feel like it. You know what a jerky driver you will be? That's all it is right now. It is not that you do not know peace, it is not that you do not know joy, it is not that you do not know moments of blissfulness and ecstasy. The problem is just that it is not sustainable, isn't it? It is jerky. Your well-being is right now in a jerky state. This moment you're wonderful, next moment you're nasty, this moment you're beautiful, next moment you're ugly, this moment you're joyful, next moment you don't know what. Isn't this the way it's happening? When you were 5 years of age, how joyful you were. And today, how joyful you are in terms of how many moments in a day. Has it gone up or gone down? Gone down. See, when you were 5 years of age, you had no life of your own, whatever they said you had to do. Today you have a life of your own, everything is yours, but everything that you do, you did only in pursuit of your well-being and joy, but it is going down. Then something basic is off the rack, isn't it? Nobody is old enough for this here. Suppose you owned a car, you got yourself a car in 1940s. Along with this, you need 2 servants because morning push start. In 1950s, if you got a car, 1 help would do because crank start. Today all your cars are self-start, isn't it? All I'm asking you is, your joyfulness, your peacefulness, your well-being, shall we keep it on push start or shall we get it on self-start? I want to hear that. Self-start? I'm only talking about upgrading technologies. But right now it is still on push start, isn't it so? If only consciously you could conduct this, you would exist here as the Creator Himself. You would make your life just the way you want it. So, I think the most important engineering that needs to happen is that you engineer yourself the way you want yourself to be before we start engineering the world. Once you have come as a human being, somehow survival is not enough, isn't it? Just to eat, sleep, reproduce and die one day somehow is not enough for a human being. If you had come as any other creature on this planet, stomach full, life settled. But once you come here as a human being, stomach empty, only one problem. Stomach full, 100 problems. Your life begins only after survival is taken care of, isn't it? Now, once you're a human being, you're constantly looking for something else. Some sense of fulfillment, something to go beyond. We will look at this later. But right now, whatever you want to pursue, first and foremost thing is, your experience of life should be taken into your hands, isn't it? When you were 5 years of age, your face was like this, beaming. Slowly, lot of faces are becoming long, not because they're growing a beard, just like that. You go and stand on any of the main streets in your town. Every minute, hundreds of people are passing, lot of them driving their dream machines. How many joyful faces do you see on the street? Huh? How many? If you see any, usually they are very young faces. Over 30 faces are all long faces. What's happened to them? For most of them, their lives have happened far better than they ever imagined. For most of you, your lives have happened far better than you ever imagined. You're definitely living better than your father or your grandfather, I'm saying materially, yes? Materially, are you not living better than your fathers and grandfathers? Unless your grandfather happened to be a Maharaja. So it is not that there is something wrong with your life, but faces are becoming long. Why? If you're in pursuit of your happiness and trying to fix the whole world, it is an endless distance. If you turn around, it is right here. Because the basis of your experience is within you. So, what we are looking at is to turn around. This is a simple method, a simple technology to turn inward. If you turn inward and take charge of the basis or the seat of your experience, after that, do I have to tell you, please choose joy, don't choose misery? Do you need a scripture like this? Do you need a teaching like this? If you had a choice, your choice would definitely be pleasantness. There is no question about that. Right now, the problem is, you have lost the choice. Why is it that you have lost the choice? Simply without understanding even the fundamentals of this system, you are trying to operate. What is happening within you should not happen by chance. This should happen just by intent, not by accident, isn't it? Because this is such an accidental being, we are switching to all kinds of belief systems. Now, this is not a belief system, this is not a philosophy, this is not a teaching, this is a technology. You have to learn to use it. Unless you learn to use it, it will not work. So generally, we assume, at least in India, when we say meditation, we are referring to dhyan. What is dhyan? Or let me use the word meditation because that's English. When we say meditation, you need to understand this is not something that you can do, because you can become meditative, you can become meditation, you can never do meditation. It's a certain quality. If this quality has to blossom within you, if meditation has to blossom within you, if you cultivate your body, if you cultivate your mind, your emotion and energy to a certain level of preparedness, meditation will blossom within you. If you do meditation, anything that you do, you can't keep it up, isn't it? Isn't it so? Suppose right now your breath, are you doing it or is it happening? It's happening.
Your life, are you doing it or is it happening? It's happening. Suppose your breath or your life was given to your hands to do it. Let's say the breath. If you got angry with somebody, you would forget to breathe, isn't it? Yes? Fortunately, all the vital things are happening. You just have to sit here and enjoy the process of life. For that, what a mess people are making out of it. So, when your breath cannot be given to your hands, when your basic life cannot be given to your hands, meditation, how can it be given to your hands? But if you create a certain atmosphere, meditation will blossom. If there is spring in the soil, if there is spring in the sunlight, if there is spring in the atmosphere around, flowers will blossom, isn't it? Flowers will not blossom because you sit there and peel them. So if you sit there and try to meditate, it is not going to happen. If you create the necessary atmosphere in your body, mind, emotion and energy, meditation has to blossom. Meditation is not going somewhere, it's a homecoming. It's getting back to your original nature. Instead of being on the surface, you are going deeper into the core. It cannot be done, but you can make it happen. What is enlightenment? If whatever I say you tend to misunderstand, whatever I say you're bound to misunderstand, but let me see how to create minimum amount of misunderstanding. This is the reason why most enlightened beings never spoke, because the moment you speak, you're bound to be misunderstood. That's the reason I don't speak about any other dimension of life, I'm only talking about methods. When you get there, you will know. Now, you want to see New York City. If I go on talking about New York City, you still don't know. So I'm just trying to build a car for you. You get in and go there. When you go there, you will know what it is. Till then, whatever I speak, you're bound to perceive it in all kinds of ways. Everything that you understand, you always understand it only from what you already know. That's the basis of your understanding. That understanding is of no consequence when we're talking about a completely different dimension of life. Now, what enlightenment means for you would be, suppose you're here right now, you're in the body, but you don't belong to the body. You have a mind, but you don't belong to the mind. You have a family, you don't belong to the family. You're in the world, but you don't belong to the family, to the world. But at the same time, everything is a part of you. You're not in conflict with anything. Everything is a part of you, but you yourself don't belong to anything. How would it be? You cannot imagine, isn't it? So in terms of your experience, how would it be? Suppose you spent a lifetime without ever knowing what's fear, what's anger, what's jealousy, what's hatred, what's anxiety. You're blissful all the time, you're intoxicated all the time, at the same time you're fully alert. How would it be? Did you ever get drunk? No. Okay. All the time you got drunk, but all the time you're fully wide awake and alert. Even if you fall asleep, you're wide awake. But even if you're awake, you're still in deep sleep. Am I making some sense to you? No. So, enlightenment means you have broken the barriers of the physical. The limitations the physical has imposed upon you, you've broken that. Now, don't seek enlightenment right now, because for most people, over 90% of the people who reach that stage, the moment of enlightenment and moment of leaving the body are same. Once your energies reach such a peak, you can't hold on to the body, you'll drop the body anyway. So moment of enlightenment and moment of leaving the body are same for most people. Only somebody who knows the tricks of the body, who understands the mechanics of the body can hold on to it. Otherwise they have to employ something else to hold on to it. Because most people who attain have not gone into that kind of sadhana. They are only learning to drive the car, they're not learning how to build the car. So they cannot retain the body. They will have to play various dramas to hold on to the system. For example, you heard of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna is an uneducated man. That's the advantage he had. No influence of education on him. He is like a village bumpkin, but a crystallized consciousness. So he is very simple. He is very significant for United States because the first yogi who came to United States in 1895, he came to Chicago, okay. 93? 1893, Swami Vivekananda landed up in Chicago. See, he came here looking for you. And the other yogi who really made some impact in the country was Paramahamsa Yogananda. He also is a disciple of Ramakrishna's disciple. So both of them have the same lineage of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and both of them came to United States. So Ramakrishna was godlike. People saw him godlike, they worshipped him as God. Very simple man, like a villager he is. He has no education, no sophistication, simple. But he is godlike, people could not miss his divinity. But he was mad about food, crazy about food, He is talking to a group of people, his disciples. Halfway he says, "Please wait, I will come." He will run into the kitchen and ask his wife, "What's cooking today?" Sharada, his wife, was ashamed of this. How can you be like this? People see you godlike and you're mad about food. Even I am not bothered about food, why are you bothered about food? Ramakrishna would say, "That's okay, but what's cooking?" One day she really got angry with him and she said, "I am ashamed. I'm just ashamed of you the way you are. People are worshipping you like God and you are mad about food." That day he told her, "One day when you bring the thali means in India, in that part of the country, there's a large plate. In India people eat in such big plates. A large plate where food is pre-arranged and brought. Ramakrishna always sat on a swing. That is also a unique thing for India probably. We have swings which are like eight feet long, you can sleep on it and he always ate on this swing. One day when you bring the food, thali, to me, if I look away, if I don't show any interest in the food, you must know there are only 3 more days left." This happened 7 years after this incident. One day she brought the thali and he looked away. Then she immediately knew, she broke down and cried. He said, no point crying, time is up. He just used a conscious desire for the food as a way to hold on to his body. He doesn't know any other systems of yoga to hold on. So simple method, he created a conscious desire for the food all the time. Everything else has been lost, because without desire you cannot exist in the body. Everything else has been gone. Now there is a conscious desire every day, consciously he's thinking about food all the time, just to keep himself in the system. This kind of conscious desire, you can drop it any time. When you feel it's done, you can just drop it. So, moment of enlightenment and moment of leaving will be same. So that's why we work people up to a certain point and peg them down there on the last step. so that they serve their natural course of life in a very beautiful way. And when the time comes, we can release them from that. It'll be nice to send them right now, but it'll be nice to have evolved people on the planet.
Something amazing has happened and I just could not believe it. It's not that some sadhu has performed it, but in his presence it has happened. So do you believe in these things?
Right now, let us say, you do not know what is electricity. Let's say you do not know. At one time people did not know, isn't it? Let's say you don't know anything about it. Now I will tell you, see, if I just go and touch a certain part of the wall, the whole hall will be flooded in light. Would you believe me? Would you believe me? No. Now I just go and touch it, and suddenly the whole hall is flooded with light. Now I must be God or messenger of God or son of God or something, isn't it? Or in other words, anything that you do not understand, anything that is beyond your present level of understanding, that's a miracle for you, isn't it? Now, we are always looking for miracles. I can perform a miracle if you want right now. See, this bottle, whichever way I throw it, it'll only come down. Why are you laughing? This is a miracle that they discovered long ago. Isaac Newton discovered this. Even before him it was only coming down. But since then it's not a miracle because now we understand it, isn't it? If you do not understand the miracle of life, is there a miracle? There are two ways of looking at it. One way is, if you look at it, everything, every cell in your body, every atom is a miracle, isn't it? The way it's happening. Isn't it absolute miracle that you're sitting on this planet and talking about all these things when it is spinning at a tremendous speed? Isn't it a miracle? Isn't it a miracle that from two simple cells you become all this, now you can question so much the very process of life? Isn't it a miracle? So, one way of looking at it is, whole process of life, every bit of it is a miracle. Another way of looking at it is, nothing is a miracle. Everything has a basis to it. Everything in the physical realm is happening between cause and effect. Whenever you don't understand the cause of it, when you just see the effect instead of knowing the cause, you think it's a miracle. But all physical reality is happening between cause and effect. Is that so? So these are two ways to view it. One way, the way of the science is nothing is a miracle. Everything has an explanation, everything has a basis. The way of the mystical is everything is a miracle, but they are not different. They're same. We are talking in terms of science because the strongest aspect in you right now is the logic, isn't it? Isn't it so? If you try to discard your logic and try to be mystical, you will not be truthful to yourself. You will have to tell many lies to yourself, but still something within you will keep on bothering you with questions. Your mind has evolved to a point, your intellect has evolved to a point where you cannot avoid questioning, isn't it? When it's like this, it's better approach everything scientifically, logically. Otherwise, your mind will bother you. Today you may tell yourself, no, it's all God's work. Tomorrow morning your mind will pop up and ask an uncomfortable question. If you were very simple-minded, innocent-minded, then it would be okay to look at it that way. Now that you have a complex, questioning mind, you shouldn't talk about those things. You look at everything, that whatever happens, there must be a basis to it. I can do many things that you cannot do. You would think it's a miracle. It's not a miracle, it's just that you don't understand how it happens, so you think it's a miracle. Now you have a disease, let's say. Tomorrow morning if it's gone, your doctor and you would think it's a miracle.
I don't think it's a miracle. First of all, as far as I am concerned, you have no business to be deceased. Okay? You have created it. The moment you become aware, if you stop creating it, it doesn't happen anymore, that's all. So, anything which is beyond the present level of understanding seems like a miracle. I don't understand your accounts. For me, it's all a miracle, the end figure that comes out.